welcome to the Astranti Financial Training Strategic Analysis of the Operational Case Study Pre-seen for February 2017 with the company in question being Mavis Venderby. My name is James. I've been at Astranti for a long time. I've worked very closely with many of the case studies that CIMA have released in the past, and I've spent the past couple of weeks going through all the details of the pre-seen that we've been giving for Mavis Venderby here. And what we're going to do now in this video is we're going to do a strategic analysis, and that is going to consist in a kind of top-down, a strategic level analysis of the company. So to start off, we'll just go through a quick introduction to recap where we are with Mavis Venderby and what's going on. So obviously they're a beehive manufacturer, but they also retail this as well. They also sell their beehives. So it's important to remember that there are those two aspects for Mavis Venderby. They're not just a manufacturer, they're also a retailer as well. And obviously beehive manufacturing and retailing is a fairly obscure industry, so we don't know much about it going into it. It's one of these industries that we're going to really have to learn a lot about, and that can be quite an interesting and fun process once you get into it and start learning all these new things about an industry that you never expected to be well educated about. Okay, so one thing we can say about Mavis Venderby from the top is that they are a long-standing manufacturer. They've got a pretty good reputation in the home country of Tuckland, and they're one of the biggest retailers and manufacturers of beehives in their home country. But in addition to that, from going through the pre-seen, particularly the financial statements, we found that profits have been declining over the past few years, and based on budgeted figures as well, profits and revenues as well seem to be declining. So there's a kind of a big problem there, in that we want to try and find a way for Mavis Venderby to continue operating without sort of taking these hits and losses in profit. We need to make them more profitable again going forwards. So the approach here is going to be based on the rational model, and basically what we're doing here, we're starting at the now section, this section here on the left, and this is just us trying to get as good a picture and idea as possible of Mavis Venderby, and we're going to be looking at all the classic models associated with that. So we're going to be looking at the business environment and pestle. We're going to be looking at their marketing strategies and techniques. We're going to see what their brand is like, and we'll look at the 4 Ps of the marketing mix. We'll be doing a SWOT analysis and looking at the value chain as well, and all these things feed in to getting a very good comprehensive idea of where Mavis Venderby currently stand. And then of course we need to look at their future goals and objectives, where they want to be and what they want to be doing further down the line. And this is going to involve looking at some of the more longer term sort of structural approach of the company, their kind of approach to governance and ethics. We also need to identify and think about the critical success factors. So what are the things that Mavis Venderby can capitalize on to make sure that they are doing well in the future and for a long time, to make sure that they're sustainable. And we're also, very importantly, going to have to consider stakeholders. So who are the most important stakeholders for Mavis Venderby, and how can they be managed in a way that is beneficial to all? And then once we've got a clear idea of where the business are at the moment, where they want to be, we can develop a business strategy that aims to get them from where they are now to where they want to be. So let's just consider these steps a little bit more closely now. So in terms of a step-by-step approach, we're going to start by looking at where they want to be in the future. We want to look at their missions and objectives, and where Mavis Venderby should aim to be over the next few years, and perhaps further on than that as well. And to do that, as we've already said, we'll be looking at critical success factors. Basically, how can Mavis Venderby succeed? What specific things about them can they capitalize on to make sure that they are successful? With regards to governance and ethics, the key question is, how is the company managed? Do they have the right resources allocated to the right aspects of the business? Is there a good governance approach? Are there clear sort of objectives and aims for each individual department? Do they work well as a whole? Are there any obvious areas that need improvement, and is there any weakness in the overall organization? And of course, the other feature is stakeholder mapping, and we'll be looking at Mendelow's matrix there and trying to find out which of our stakeholders, we'll put them in the matrix according to their power and their interest, and that will give us a very clear indication of which stakeholders we need to really prioritize and make sure that their needs are catered to, and which stakeholders are perhaps less important and we can devote less time and energy to. And all of this, just as a side note, is a classic example of how the operational case study exam works. All of these have various business models or typical models associated with them, and we'll have learnt the theory and how to understand how these various models work in a business scenario from the E1, F1 and P1 objective test papers that we would have sat already. But when we get to the case study, what the examiner is really looking for is to see that you can apply this theory to real life scenarios. And so what we're going to be doing is taking these models and applying them to the Mavis Venderby's particular situation and the industry. And that's exactly what we need to be doing in this exam, because the mix is between theory and application. And the theory side of it is usually okay, but you have to make sure that you're also doing that application to the business as well, because that's what's really important from the examiner's perspective. Okay, so let's actually start by considering the mission and objectives of Mavis Venderby, and that's what we'll be doing on this first slide here. And the mission is really a core idea, and it's very important for any company to have a clear, identifiable mission, because really the mission is the purpose. It's the reason why the organization exists. It is why it wakes up in the morning, if you will. And having a clear target, an objective and a clear mission makes it easier for everyone to pull together, all parts of the organization, whether it's the top level or it's the employees at the bottom. It helps them all to pull together and focus on achieving this one mission. So let's have a go at trying to answer some of these key questions here. So the first question to ask about purpose is, why does the organisation exist at all, and for whom does it exist? Now this is a difficult question to ask. Obviously we're outside of Mavis Venderby, we don't know some of these things, and some of these questions will be difficult to ask. We can just make some guesses and some assumptions. But one thing we can say is that Mavis Venderby are a family business, and the business has been in this particular family, in the Venderby family, for 70 years. And so in this respect, we could say that Mavis Venderby exists because it is a family business and it's been passed down on, and there's a sense of tradition and pride associated with that. Each new generation that inherits the business are carrying on the previous generations, so their fathers and grandfathers. They're carrying on the business, the family business, and it's a sense of pride, and that's kind of a very deep level motivation to want your business to succeed. It's kind of more fundamental than to create a highly profitable business or whatever it is. It's kind of a closer family tie, which is going to be a very big motivator for the members of the family. Of course, the other side of this means that they perhaps may be less inclined to push the business too far. If there's a sort of sense of tradition about it, then they might be quite content to keep things running along as they are, sort of a fairly smallish operation, just continuing business as usual. And that brings us to the next question: what does the organisation hope to achieve in the long term? We don't really know. We're not given too much information about that in the pre-seen, but we can kind of assume that they want to be a major retailer and manufacturer of beehives within Tuckland, and if not just Tuckland, then perhaps internationally as well. They may have ambitions to go beyond just Tuckland and perhaps start off by selling in surrounding countries and perhaps even globally at some point in the future as well. Okay, so moving on to strategy then, we need to ask the question of how is the organization going to compete? How will they stay competitive within the market, and who are the competitors that they have to compete with in order to do well? So in this respect, Mavis Venderby has quite a lot going for them. They're a well-established firm. They've been around for a long time, and this has meant that they've been able to cement themselves as a quality provider among their customers. So that means that they've got quite a large market share, the largest of any other manufacturer or retailer in Tuckland. It also means that because they've got high quality products and they've been around for a long time, then a lot of their customers have a respect for Mavis Venderby as the high quality producer of beehives, and they're also the largest beehive manufacturer in Tuckland as well. So they've got a lot going for them, and there's a lot of things that they can use to their advantage there. This makes them very competitive, but it also means a lot of businesses are going to come along, competitors will come along, and they're going to try to topple Mavis Venderby because they want to get to the top as well. So they're going to have to look out for new entrants or growing competitors within the same industry, trying to maintain their share of the market, and in fact, if maybe even increase it if possible. Moving on to values, this is a slightly easier one to answer. We need to think about what the organization stands for. So what are some of the characteristics or the aspects of Mavis Venderby that they are most proud of and that they put a lot of stock in order to kind of project that to their customers? Well, from the pre-seen, we know they certainly seem to be quite keen on quality, and that is reinforced by the fact that their customers think that they are a high quality provider. They've got a reputation for having high quality products, so this is clearly a value for them, is to have high quality. And so one thing they're going to have to do looking long term is to make sure that that quality doesn't slip, that the cost of materials, if it does increase, that they don't become too tempted or even forced to go for cheaper materials in order to maintain kind of levels of production and to keep costs down, because that's going to affect quality, that'll bring quality down, and that's going to lose that kind of brand advantage that is very valuable to them at the moment. Another value that we could perhaps say is the innovation. Now at the moment they've only got 4 products, they do 4 kinds of hives, and they don't do any other kind of beekeeping equipment. They haven't got any other kinds of hives such as the polystyrene hives or different kinds of hive other than the sort of Langstroth basic hive. There's other kinds of hives such as the top bar hive, which they don't do. So in one sense they're not very innovative, but reading the pre-seen we kind of learn that there is some research and development going on. They're developing a pheromone that can be used in hives to prevent diseases and insects and other sort of invading things coming into the hives. And there's also someone working on developing animal enclosures for animals other than bees. So there is a real sense in which they are trying to be innovative here. If perhaps slightly late to the game, then they certainly at least have a kind of aspiration to be more innovative in the future. And finally, we'll take a look at policies. So these are the kind of the ways that Mavis Venderby can try to enforce their kind of the strategic high-level values and missions within the company to make sure that everyone is kind of is following the same path in a way. There isn't much evidence of anything like that at the moment. Whether there is or not, we don't know, because it just hasn't really been included in the pre-seen. Although we can probably assume that there's an expected high standard within the company. They are the biggest retailer in the home country of Tuckland. They have the biggest share of the market, and they are known for their high quality products. So people who work there probably internalize this kind of, well, they're working for one of the top companies in this particular industry. So there might be a sort of internalized feeling of, there's a high standard here, so we need to work well and make sure everything is top quality and fits with the overall image of Mavis Venderby. Okay, so moving on to have a think about some specific targets then. So thinking about what we've read in the pre-seen and what we've discussed already, we can infer a few specific targets for Mavis Venderby. One of those being directly from Thomas Venderby. If we go back to the pre-seen, he's the managing director, and Thomas Venderby has shown an interest in developing new products. And this is evidenced by the research and development going on for this pheromone for beehives and animal enclosures for other for other areas of industry. So there's definitely a sort of an innovative approach here where they want to develop new products. And they also mention, particularly Thomas Venderby, managing director, is keen to develop the customer base as well. So again, as we learned in the pre-seen, there seems to be a growing popularity for hobbyist beekeeping, and so Mavis Venderby would do well to sort of capitalize on this and make sure that they are marketing to this growing area of the market. And we also learned that they're keen to maintain the quality of production. So as we said earlier, if the cost of raw materials goes up, if the prices of cedar and pine go up, then Mavis Venderby are going to have to try to make sure that they're not cutting corners in terms of quality, because that's a key selling point for them, and it's a big part of their reputation within the market. Now, these are quite general objectives, they're not very specific at all, but that's to be expected. Often the pre-seen won't contain much detailed information on actual performance objectives. And perhaps we might even bring up and suggest the balanced scorecard approach, as there is kind of a lack of non-financial performance measurement in this particular case. So non-financial performance indicators being things like the quality of products, customer satisfaction, areas like that. It's important to make sure that those are measured as well, because they can be very indicative of areas of weakness or strengths within the company themselves. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And I'll just take a few moments of your time, if I could, to just tell you about some of the other case study materials that we offer. So one of the things is a study text. Now this is a study text specifically aimed at the case study, and we have one for each level. So we have an operational, management and strategic level one, and they're designed to help you pass the study. They're in two halves. The first half is exam tips and this exam strategy and advice on how to answer questions and all the really useful kind of tips that you need going into these exams and how to prepare for them. And then the second half, the second part of those, is a recap of the key theory that always comes up in the case studies again and again. So those are really useful, really valuable thing that you can get. Those are available online, and you can get an actual textbook, a printed physical textbook for the old-fashioned among you who like to do it that way still. We also have course videos that correspond with that study text as well. So we have a series of really nicely well-produced, well-done videos in which we basically take you through exactly what's involved in the case study and how you can spend your time preparing for it to ensure that you get really good marks. It's really, really great series of videos there. We've got the pre-seen analysis, which the video you just watched is an example of the pre-seen analysis, and there'll be several more videos just like that where we look at every tiny detail of the pre-seen and we relate it back to the P1 or F1 or E1, and we relate it to real life scenarios, relate it to actual business and analysis tools, and we give you the what we expect to be the top 10 issues. Another thing that we do slightly different is the industry analysis, and that is this is a really great document in which we basically cover everything that's relevant to the industry for the particular business that we're looking at. And it goes from their history through to the customers and suppliers and the market and how the market has functioned and the history of that. And we've got statistics in there and diagrams, and it's full of information. It's so useful. And at the end of that pack, we also have 25 actual industry examples. So real life things that have happened in that industry, that kind of examples of things that might actually happen to to the company in the exam. So it gives you a sense of the kind of things that are going on in the industry and how real life businesses in that industry have coped with it. We have mock exams, which are, if you were going to pick any one of these to do, I would suggest it was the mock exams, because nothing prepares you for the exam more than actually sitting a mock exam. And if I were a student taking this, I would certainly put mock exams at the top of my list, along with marking and feedback. Now, our mock exams are actually designed to match the way that the actual CIMA exams are, so you can sit them on your laptop and they'll be timed and automatic, and they are as close as you are going to get to the real thing. And you can get marking and feedback on that as well, which is probably the most valuable thing you could probably get. To get specific feedback from a marker who deals with this exam 4 times a year, that's the best way for you to improve your ability to pass this exam as quickly as possible. We also have a masterclass. So as an online company, we hold an online masterclass which you can sign up for, and it's a day over the weekend. We do the Saturday and a Sunday, and it's a full day's worth of we have an expert who takes an online seminar, and we go through everything specific to that case study that you can do to get prepared for the exam, and we cover all sorts. And it's very, very popular among students who like a one-on-one kind of classroom environment in an online situation. We also offer pass guarantee. So if you're unlucky enough to not pass your exam the first time round, then there's no worries, because we give you the option. If you choose a pass guarantee option, then as long as you hit all the minimum requirements that we ask, and you don't pass, then you get access to our materials for the next sitting completely free of charge. So there's something that we're doing to try and get you. Hopefully, if you signed up to our course and you do everything that we say you should do, then you probably will pass first time. That tends to be the way it goes. But if you should be unfortunate, if it's a particularly tough exam, then we'll let you have another go for free. So that's it. Thanks again for watching. Remember, my name is James. You can find me on Facebook, James Nutting Astranti, where I'll be posting all sorts of information about the upcoming exam in February. Make sure you check that out because there's always something to talk about with regards to that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.